Hi everyone, Rad here. Hey, I want to just take you through a quick SnapSeed tutorial, show you how I managed an image the other day. The SnapSeed is one of those tools that, you can just spend a lot of time in it, working through all these different corners and nooks and crannies in it. This is the app that we're talking about. It's now a Google app. It was originally created by Nick and purchased by Google years ago. It's now a free app, and it works on both Android as well as iPhone. I'm going to be using an iPhone here to share with you how I used it to process a recent image. So let's go ahead and open up SnapSeed. I'm going to tap there and open it up. This is bringing up an image that I used or was working on recently. So I'm going to tap the open button up in the upper left and say open, and it brings me to my options here, and I'm going to open an image from the device. So I'll tap on open from device, and I'm going to scroll down here to a little album I created for SnapSeed tutorial, and I'm going to select this image right here. This is just a simple image of a bicycle in Cuba. I love the light and the angles and the way it's coming through the background with the shadows on the wall and everything. And I wanted to show you how I use Snapseed to quickly process this image. So I'm going to go ahead and tap Use, and there we have our image in Snapseed. The first thing I notice as I look at this image, with any image I do, I try and do this in the camera when I'm making the photograph, is to look around the edges of the frame and make sure that I'm not capturing something at the edge that's going to create a distraction and not be a contributing thing to the image itself. As I look at this image and go around the edge, I notice that over here on the right we've got this hand truck, it looks like, or something, which is interesting, but it's really detracting a little bit from the subject, which is the bike and the shadows and the angles there. So I may want to crop that out. The other thing I'm noticing is that when I look over here at the left side, you can see that there's a little bit of keystoning. The top of the door frame is in further than the bottom of the door frame. And there's a real easy way to fix that in Snapseed, and so I want to walk through showing you that. Then I'll do just the basic processing that I do to work with the tones in the image and sharpen it and clarify it and things like that. So the first thing I'm going to do here is tap on my Tools button down at the bottom, and I'm going to go to my Perspective tool. It's there in the second row. Tap on Perspective, and we're now in our Perspective tool, and you notice we have several different things we can do within this tool. There's the tilt over on the left. We can rotate, which is great for leveling a landscape horizon or something. Can also scale the image, and then there's a free tilting that we can do. What I want to do with this one is use the tilt feature over on the very left. So I'm going to tap on that, and it brings me into the tilt feature, and you can see I can tilt this image on the vertical or the horizon. In this case, what I'm going to do is take my finger on the screen, and I'm going to drag it down, and I'm going to tilt the image forward, and watch what happens to our lines over here on the left where the door is. That's what I'm trying to correct, is that keystoning. So I'm going to take my finger and drag it down, and notice as I drag it down, see how I've suddenly I've squared off that door, and you see the little black triangles, the little slivers of triangle that appear at the bottom of each side of the image. When I release my finger now, Snapseed is going to fill those squares in using content-aware technology, and complete that image without cropping it. But I'm going to release my finger now and watch what happens. There we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and click the check mark to commit to those changes. And now let's look at our before. And by the way, to do this before and after that I'm going to do, I'm simply going to push my finger on the screen, on the image, and it'll show you before and after. So here's my finger on the screen. There's before. Notice the tilt of the image, and there's after. So all I've done is use that tilt feature in Perspective and rotated it down a little bit, tilted it down to square off that door on the left. So here again, there's the before. You can see how it's a little crooked, and here's after, and it's all squared up. Real simple change, didn't affect our take anything away from our image, but it really cleaned that part of it up. So the next thing I want to do now is crop it a little bit to eliminate this element on the side of the hand truck that's sort of extra, or extraneous to the image. So again, I'm going to tap on Tools, and I'm going to go to the crop feature. It's over here in the second row on the left. Tap on Crop. And we come into crop, so right now it's defaulting to the last thing I did, so I must have used that 7.5 on an image previously. If I tap on the 4.3, let's see, this was probably a square image when I took it. So yeah, so I'll tap on square, and you can see that we are now, that's the orientation of this image when it was taken. What I want to do is crop in to eliminate that hand truck on the right. I want to do it in such a way, I want to keep that light up at the top, that fluorescent light. I don't know, I like that that angle of that light, and the fact that it brings in that turquoise color that matches what's going on the wall over there in the shadow on the left. So I don't want to crop it, I don't want to go like this and crop it like that at all. I want to, because I don't want to lose that light on the top. So what I think I'll do is start at the lower right corner and drag in this way until I can eliminate that. And I'm not sure I like that either, but let's just take a look at that. I'll go ahead and commit to it. That's not so bad actually, but I miss the angle and the lines of the drama in the foreground that we've kind of lost. So I want to go back and readjust that. So how do I readjust an adjustment I just made, like that crop? Well, if you look up at the top, there is an icon that looks like two little stacks with an arrow, curved arrow over it. I'm going to tap on that, and it brings me here to a place where I can undo or revert the image. But what I want to do is look at View Edits. When I tap on View Edits, it's showing me the different adjustments that we've made to this image so far. So we've started with doing that perspective adjustment to square it up, and then we're looking now at the crop that we just did. If I tap on Crop, I can either, I have two options that come up. There's a trash can, I can throw this adjustment away completely, or I can tap on the sliders here and continue to make further adjustments to that crop. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to click on the sliders, and I'm going to bring this back out. And I don't, do I want to keep it square? I think so, but let's just see what happens if I change it to 4.3. See, that's not going to work either. If I go to 5.4, still not going to work. Because what I like this drama of this line coming through across in the front of the image. I'm going to go back to our square format, which is where what it was shot at. And what I may do is try and take a little bit from the bottom and then a little bit from the top. Maybe just a little bit more from the bottom. So I'm kind of trying to split the difference between the top and the bottom, because I really like that line in the bottom there. That's that black shadow and bright sun, and I don't want to lose too much of that. So if I bring that down, that's not bad. So let's go like that, and maybe even like that. So, what I'm going to do is something different. So we've cropped this now in a way that I've kept this light up at the top. I like that fluorescent light, but I've still got a little bit of that hand truck on the side, which is kind of distracting to me. I'm going to go ahead and click OK to that, and now we're back. Here's our before, and here's our after. We still have a little bit of this hand truck. I can't really keep that square perspective and without losing my light or lose at the top or losing the angle shadow that I like so much in the foreground. So what I'm going to try and do is use the healing tool. It's the one here that in the third row. It says healing. It's two band-aids over icon over one over the other. I'm going to tap on that, and I'm going to zoom in over here on the right. And I'm just going to see if I can remove it and not have it be too obvious that I've messed with that. That's not great, but it's not terrible either. I might leave that just like that and say, okay, so now here's our before and here's our after. Now, you could play around with that probably and clean that up even more than I have. And again, if you wanted to go back in and play with that some more, you would go up here to the stacks icon, the one with the arrow over it, tap on that, go to View Edits, Healing, tap on the sliders, and you can come in here and continue to play around with that and see if you can get it to where it looks good. And again, I'm going really quick here. You could spend a little more time and probably that would be better. Again, I just wanted to get that distracting hand truck out of there so that we're really focusing on our image. And so I think I keep making it a little worse, but and I'm just kind of tapping on those areas to try and clean that up. So that's not so bad. That's pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, so now here's our image. Here's our before. Here's our after. And I'm kind of liking what I've got there. So now what I'm going to do, now I've done the cropping and the perspective, and I've got this element out of here that I didn't want. Now I'm going to start with my processing, and I'm going to go up here to Tune Image, tap on that, and in Tune Image, you've got all of these different variables that you can adjust. I usually leave the first three to the last if I use them at all, and where I start is ambiance. I'm going to take my finger and drag it across the screen, and you can notice the numbers are increasing. I'm taking it from 0, and I'm going to take it all the way up to 100. Now, there's our before, and there's our after. Clearly, that's oversaturated and everything, but look at how it's brought out some of the detail and things. Now, I may back that off to about maybe, 70%. There's before, and there's after. It may still be a little warm, but that's okay. We can fix that in a minute. So next I'm going to go into my highlights. Now when I look at this image, the areas that have highlights are the door jamb on the left, the shadows and bright spot in the back of the wall, back in the back, and then also the light in the foreground where the sun's coming in. I'm going to take, and if I increase the highlights, you can notice how, look at the door jamb. I'm blowing it out completely. So increasing the highlights is not what I want to do. What I want to do is drop them down. And now look what's happening. Look what happens to the door jamb and the detail there. There's before and there's after. We've got the detail coming out in that door jamb. We might even drop it down a little bit more. There's before and there's after. The next thing that we want to do here then is go down to our shadows. Of this image, the shadows are really important here. If we increase the shadow, increase it toward 100, we're opening up those shadows and bringing out detail in those shadow areas. But that's not what I want to do with this image. I like the drama of the darker black. So if I go back to 0, that's where I was. And if I even go down just a little bit, I might want to do that. Now in this particular image, I don't think I do. I think I'm pretty good with it being right about there. We have a little bit of detail in the door and a little bit of detail here in the floor in the shadow, but we haven't brought it up real high. So there's still a lot of drama in this image, and I really like that. And the next thing I'm going to do is go down to warmth. Now this image is already very warm from the ambiance adjustment that we did. So we could increase that warmth, and you see how it gets more yellow, or we could use this as an opportunity to bring that warmth down a little bit and bring it back closer to what we would have seen in this scene when I took the shot. So there's our before and there's our after, and I'm liking that pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the check mark and commit to that. So now let's go back up to the stack icon here with the arrow over it and look at our edits. So here's what we've done so far. We did the perspective, we did the crop, we took out the hand truck with the healing, and then we just did the tune image. So now the next thing I want to do here, I'll go back to tools again, and I want to go up here to details in the first row, second item. I'll tap on that, and in details you can adjust your structure and your sharpening. I'm going to start with structure, and I'm going to move my finger to the right, and I'm going to watch the image as I go, and I might even expand it a little bit here to see what's happening. I find that if I go up, really every image is different, but around 20, 25, anywhere in there. If I go beyond that, I usually risk overdoing it. So I'm going to stop at 21 there. Sharpening, same thing. I'm going to bring it up to about 20, and I'm watching the image as I go. And again, I can press on the screen and look at before and after. So there's before the sharpening and structure, and there's after. So you can see that we brought out the texture in the wood and so on. So there's our image now. I'm going to go ahead and commit to that detail adjustment. And here's our before, and here's our after. The next thing I want to do here is go back to tools again, and there's an adjustment called tonal adjustment. It's the one right here, top row now, the second one over. I'm going to tap on tonal contrast. Tonal contrast, if I look in here, these are the adjustments that it's looking at, your high tones, mid tones, and low tones. You can also protect your highlights and shadows. But what I usually do is leave those defaults alone. The first thing I do when I open it up into tonal contrast is to press my finger on the screen and look at the before and then the after. Now, pay close attention to the floor. There's before and there's after. I like that. I like what's going on with that. It's bringing out that texture in the floor. There's before and there's after. I like what it's doing to the image. I want to look again back here on the wall. Back here, there's before and there's after. So it's bringing in a little bit of the texture that's already there in the scene. And I like that. Now, this is where it gets to, your taste. You may choose not to. Sometimes I do the tonal adjustment. I do that before and after, and I compare, and I'm like, I don't like it. And so I would hit the X and not even use that tonal contrast adjustment. In this case, I do like it. I'm going to hit the check mark and commit to that change. So now, here's our before, and here's our after. And I'm happy with that image. I'm going to go ahead and save it. Now, to do that, I'm going to hit the export button at the very bottom. And you notice there are, if you go down to the last three, you've got save, save a copy, and export. I'd never use save because I don't want to overwrite my original image. I want to make sure that I'm making a copy. So I'm either going to use save a copy or export. If I use save a copy, it's going to put it in my camera roll. If I ever want to open that image again in SnapSeed, I can still go back to my stacks of adjustments and continue to work with it. If, however, I export, whoops, I just hit it. If I export the image, which I just did, it will save it to the camera roll, but it won't be in a format that you can take back in and continue your editing. So I usually save that for once I know I'm done. So let's just go back, take a look at this in our camera roll. So there's the image we started with, and here's the image as it's saved to our camera roll. So, I just really think it's a much better image. If we go back to SnapSeed, we can look at that again. There's our before. Notice our door jamb is leaning in. It's not square. We've got the it's just sort of flat. You've got the hand truck over there on the right, kind of distracting us from the subject. It's just not alive. But when we look at the after, we've squared it up. We've got texture now over here, beautiful texture in our door jamb framing the image. We've got these rich shadows in the back with just enough detail that we can see a little bit back there. And then we've got this incredible foreground with this detailed floor going on. And our light back here, which is sort of ironic to me to have that light in contrast to this light over here. So that's it. There's our image, and it's just apply these. You can apply these techniques to the work that you're doing, and hopefully you'll enjoy doing that and create some great stuff with the images that you're making. So thanks a lot, and until next time, keep on shooting.